Coming up on the show, a man with a rifle stopped just steps from Atlanta's terminal. It was a tragedy narrowly avoided. Now we're asking, how safe are our nation's airports really? Also, there's a growing need for a better care for more adults with Down syndrome to thrive. Find out about a national project aimed to close the gap in medical training. And some drivers in Druid Hills are going in circles, literally, not just because of traffic, but wait till you hear what the Gridlock Guy found at 2 roundabouts. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take as well on today's top stories. We try to have a little bit of fun as well. All right, we're talking government shutdown to start off this morning. Here's where we are on day 22, kicking off the 4th week. Senators will return today for their 12th vote. They were in session yesterday, but did not vote on the spending bill. It's failed 11 times so far. Top Democrats are asking President Trump to get involved to help with negotiations. Some Republicans agree that President Trump's involvement would help. This is now the second longest shutdown in U.S. history. The current record is 34 full days from December 2018 to January 2029. As the shutdown drags on, food banks across the country are bracing for another wave of need, with thousands of Americans relying on federal food aid. Agencies say the clock is ticking before critical programs like SNAP and WIC run dry. Nearly 42 million Americans rely on SNAP each month, and many could miss November's payment if the shutdown continues. Feeding America reports an average of 30% increase in food bank traffic nationwide during the prolonged shutdown or funding lapse. The USDA provides up to 20% of food bank inventory through federal programs, supplies that are now frozen or delayed until the government funding is restored. Let's look at the need here in Metro Atlanta. Kyle Wade is with us this morning. He's president and CEO of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Kyle, we talked with you at the start of the shutdown a few weeks ago. Have you seen much of a difference so far?
Well, we're certainly starting to experience lots of inquiries from neighbors across North Georgia who are worried about what's about to happen. Call volume to the food bank, traffic at our website, those numbers are up significantly over the last few weeks. We're seeing some increased traffic across our food pantry network. And, this is already on top of a record level of demand that we're already experiencing. We're serving 70% more people today than we did 3.5 years ago as a result of inflation. Federal workers next week will miss their first full paycheck, which is going to increase demand some beyond where it is today. And then the big threat is if the shutdown continues into November, starting on November 5th, households that rely on SNAP benefits will not receive those benefits. And that will create a massive disruption for many households across the community.
Yeah, it's going to get worse. You guys also rely on federal funding as well. How much of a hit have you guys taken?
Well, unrelated to the shutdown, USDA already announced earlier this year some significant cuts to programs that provide food to food banks all across the country. It was about $1 billion worth of cuts. For us locally, that amounts to about 10 million pounds of food that we would have otherwise received that we won't receive now. The shutdown won't necessarily cut anything new beyond that. It could, as we get further into November, create some disruptions in our supply chain. But we're going to have to work hard with our community partners, supporters, donors, to find other sources of food to replace some of that. And we're already preparing to buy more food to try to fill in the gap. But again, Chesley, the big issue is if SNAP benefits are turned off, that's going to create a level of demand that's far beyond what the food bank can meet.
Wow. And so your biggest challenge will be that which you just said, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are about 750,000 individuals in the 29 counties we serve who rely on SNAP benefits. They receive $130 million a month in benefits that go to food purchasing. And, the value of food that our food bank distributes in a year is about $280 million. So just in 1 month, that equates to half of our total volume in a year. Just 1 month of disruption to SNAP. There's just not a way for us to fill in that gap entirely. We're going to do it the best we can, but the key thing we need is for our leaders in Washington to find a way to reach a resolution and get the government back open to ensure that we do not cause further harm in our community.
Yeah, speaking of those leaders, if you had a chance to talk to them, what would you tell them about how the folks here in Georgia are facing consequences due to the shutdown?
Yeah, we're in dialogue with folks on both sides, both chambers, just to let them know what we're seeing. The politics of this is not something we get involved in, but we do want them to understand, what the impact of the government not being open is having, so that they can factor that into their decision making.
Yeah. All right. And so if anybody that's out there watching and want to help and get involved, how do they do that with you, Kyle?
Yeah, so go to our website, acfb.org. We're going to spend a good chunk of money, several $1 million worth of money to buy food. We're going to need the community support to be able to sustain that if this is prolonged. And so you can go to that website, acfb.org, to donate. You can also find ways to volunteer. You can find pantries that are close to you that you can get involved in and help support their efforts. And you can get involved in other ways. So go to our website. That's a great front door to finding ways to get involved.
Kyle Wade, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and appreciate everybody's support out there in the community.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we are looking at a decent day after we had a little bit of rain moving to the area yesterday. Certainly if you didn't have the rain, you had the cloud cover. And now it's all gone. Yep, drier air is working in. Some areas starting off with a little fog, but that's burning off, and so we'll have the sunshine in abundance. 71 degrees your afternoon high, though, so that's going to be on the cool side, along with the wind or the breezy conditions that we'll have through the afternoon. A little bit milder tomorrow, looking at 75 degrees for the high Thursday and Friday, and then that temperature goes down over the weekend as our rain chance will start to increase late Sunday going into Monday is the way it looks right now. Don't go anywhere, folks. We got much more show for you coming up right after the break. Stay right there. All right, with more on the shutdown, let's bring in, as we do each day, NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Alice, action has been taking place in the Senate today, but it's just one senator. Talk about Oregon Democrat Jeff Merkley and what he's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's a one-man show. It's fortunate to see some kind of action, as you put it, on the floor, but not the kind that's going to get the government reopened. This is Senator Jeff Merkley, a Democrat from Oregon. He's been speaking for going on to 15 hours now. At this moment, he's just yielded the floor to one of his Democratic colleagues, Senator Cory Booker, or not yielded the floor so much as just turned it over to him to ask him some questions. This is something he's been doing periodically to at least give himself a chance to kind of take a breath. But he's still holding the position, and he's going for as long as he possibly can. Again, it's been about 15 hours now. We not too long ago saw Senator Cory Booker set a record at 25 hours of speaking nonstop on the Senate floor. And what Senator Merkley has been doing is calling to have the government reopened, and only within the context of addressing this healthcare crisis that Democrats keep hammering and have, refused to open the government with some kind of short-term funding bill that does not address the spike in premiums that we're expecting. And they've been pointing out that people are starting to get notifications this week that could give them an idea of how high their premiums may be if these Obamacare subsidies are not extended. So that's one thing that he's highlighting. But he's also just been speaking at length, clearly at length, about the Trump administration policies that he objects to strongly. He's been framing this as, a protest against what he calls the grave threat to democracy that he says President Trump poses. He's been saying that he is shredding the Constitution. He's been referencing President Trump Trump's repeated calls to have people that he views as a political enemy prosecuted, and the fact that the Department of Justice has now pursued prosecutions against a number of those foes, and just really similar to a lot of what we heard in the No Kings rallies over the weekend. It's essentially now a protest that has taken over the Senate floor. Important to note that he's not actually holding up any kind of vote that would reopen the government. There are nominations underway, but no business that would reopen the government is on hold because of this speech.
Got it. All right. President Trump yesterday met with the Senate Republicans and said he would love to meet with the Democrats. How realistic is that to happen now?
I mean, he said that, but he also said he has one caveat, which is that they have to reopen the government. And this, again, is in the context of Senator Chuck Schumer, the top Democrat in the Senate, said that the president should meet now with him and with the top Democrat in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, to speak about, again, negotiating a deal that includes these health care provisions. And President Trump has said he's happy to talk about health care. He doesn't, Republicans recognize that this is going to be a political problem if they do have, millions of Americans who are seeing healthcare costs, healthcare premiums double in some instances. So they, I think, understand it's an issue that they have to address, but they are standing firm that has to happen after the government reopens. And he says he's not going to meet until that happens. All
right. We got about 30 seconds left. Alice, it seems like there's going to be a breaking point. It could be a breaking point next week, November 1st. What's going to happen at that point?
That is the day that open enrollment begins for Obamacare, and that is when Democrats are counting on the pressure to really mount on Republicans when people start getting their open enrollment forms and really see very clearly what their new premium costs are, how much more they may have to pay for health insurance. And, we've been hearing from people saying that it's more than their mortgage and they're going to have to make serious decisions. So they're counting on that being a leverage point of kind of the public getting involved. We'll see if that comes to be true and if that makes a shift here.
Yeah, but we're watching closely. Alice, thanks so much. All right. Don't go anywhere, folks. We got plenty of stories for you coming up after the break. This is The Take. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. The suspect in this week's attempted attack at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport is expected to face a judge today. 49-year-old Billy Joe Cagle is facing multiple state and federal charges, including attempted violence at an international airport. Police say he drove from Cartersville on Monday carrying an AR-15 rifle and 27 rounds of ammo to Hartsfield-Jackson. Officers arrested him after his family alerted them. Cagle is expected to appear in both Clayton Court and federal court. As the focus now shifts from the concourse to the courtroom, it's raising new questions about how major airports like Hartsfield-Jackson can stay secure in the face of growing threats before they ever reach the checkpoint. With us now is Tegna Chief of Security and former U.S. Secret Service agent Marcus Snipes. Mr. Snipes, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Chelsea.
All right.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. In your view, is the security at U.S. airports reactive or proactive today?
I think they're way more proactive today than they have been in the past. There are so many different tools that law enforcement operation officials at airports use now, to include social media, as we saw in this incident, with the suspect from Cartersville. There's so many tools that are available to law enforcement when it comes to technology now, when it comes to monitoring intelligence on social media, getting tips, manpower, just general equipment. That allows law enforcement and officials at airports today to be way, way more proactive than in the past when they were being reactive, or they had to be reactive because they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the intelligence, they didn't have the cooperation and the interaction between all federal, local, city officials and law enforcement to put together a nice comprehensive security package and apparatus at airports. So I think it's a lot more proactive now.
In this particular case, when someone with a weapon gets as close to the curb of the world's busiest airport, what does that tell us about the real vulnerabilities inside and outside of the airport?
Well, you have to in security, especially, you look at an airport. An airport is basically a mini city. It really is, right? You have it has its own transportation mechanism, right? It has, a police force. It has restaurants, shops, right? So it's kind of a mini city. And, in security, basically, you have to build rings of security around that city so that if there is an incident or that there are tripwires that let you know there's an incident so that you can prepare yourself so you can protect each layer. So in this instance, hey, the outside layer, so to speak, was the curb, right? Well, when this subject got to the curb, that's the outside layer. That was already tripped because they got the notification. The middle perimeter inside the airport before you get to the magnetometers and TSA, and the inner perimeter being after you leave or get through TSA. So you have these layers that are in effect all the time, that are always up, and that's a basic blocking and tackling way of describing security. And security at an airport, but security at a major event or a stadium or even within the city or town. It's the same concept.
Yeah. Is there technology out there that can detect if a person is carrying a weapon before they enter buildings or before they get on the property of places like the airport? Does that exist today?
Yes, it does. It does. There's technology out there, and there's technology that's being tested, and there's technology that's been proven where, hey, imagery, there's thermal imagery. You could see what's underneath a jacket, what's underneath clothing, so to speak. So with that technology, yes, it is possible to detect someone with a weapon or an object that's being hidden. Where you deploy that technology, how you deploy that technology is what's key. And, being in the beginning stages of learning this technology and applying this technology, obviously it's expensive. It's extremely expensive. And, a lot of times you have to weigh the costs and the risks associated with the costs.
Yeah. I got about 30 seconds left. For viewers watching right now, what's the best advice you can get them to stay aware from issues like this or situations like this?
I talked to your colleague Cheryl after the Michigan shooting, and I said, and I'll say it, I'll repeat this, is for the general public is, I know it sounds like a cliche, and we've been saying it for so long now, but if you see something, say something. It's so true, as you saw in this case. And monitoring your friends, your family, social media, comments, their actions. No one knows better than a family member kind of what's in the mind of an individual before they prepare to do something like this individual tried to do. So I would say, hey, stay vigilant, see something, say something, just don't blow it off, notify the proper officials. I think if more people did that and just go, I think it's somebody else might see that and might report that. No, you may be the one, you may be the catalyst to thwart some type of incident.
There you go. All right, Marcus Snipes, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for your insight as well.
Thank you, Chelsea.
All right. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. As the shutdown continues, thousands of federal and military families are feeling the strain. Paychecks delayed, bills are due, and uncertainty growing day by day. But Consumer Reports is looking into real ways that those folks can stretch their everyday dollar. Let's bring in Consumer Reports investigative reporter Lisa Gill, who has been looking into how these programs work and how struggling families can make the most of them. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. Now, all these people feeling the pinch from the shutdown, how does it impact their everyday lives? Talk to us.
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't have to tell you, not getting a paycheck is going to cause a lot of pocketbook pain in your day-to-day budgeting. And so that was one of the reasons we started looking at, well, what are the discounts available for military, first responders, nurses, teachers, really anybody working in the public service. And military is probably the most easily identifiable. A lot of businesses have a very specific military discounts. And I'll tell you this, my first piece of advice before we really dive in is just ask. Don't be afraid to ask. I've kind of noticed a couple things. Lots of businesses offer military, both active and veteran discounts, along with teacher discounts, firefighters, other first responders discounts, but they hide them. they're actually pretty hard to find
Wow.
on their websites or even in the stores. And sometimes not everybody, not every cashier, not every person that works at that store or that restaurant might know about it. So I think the first piece of advice is really, you have to kind of be your own advocate and just ask, do you have any discounts for veterans? Ask what, if you're a teacher, do you have any teacher discounts? If you're a veteran, ask for any veteran discounts. And I'll say this. So I also think that I can't quantify it for sure. This is my gut feeling based on some of the reporting that we did, but I think a lot of businesses are willing to give you discounts even if they don't have it in writing.
Oh, wow.
So, 10, 15, 20% discounts I think are not unheard of. And I think people will understand if you're asking. So I would say don't be shy. That's my first piece of advice.
Yeah, don't be shy. Always ask. Your report touches on legal protections like the Service Member Civil Relief Act. What kind of safeguards does that actually provide during the shutdown?
Right, there's a couple things. So if you have mortgages, I would say a mortgage or a car lease or even a car loan are pretty important. If you need a little bit of time, you want to delay those payments, get a hold of your mortgage lender or wherever you're leasing your car, and be sure to remind them, hey, I need, it's called forbearance, but you don't have to use that word. Just say, I need to put a pause in my payments. And they will be able to quickly look up and make sure that you're qualified for it. You most certainly are, for sure. This is so weird, if your mortgage is federally backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, but most people don't know that.
Right.
And I'll say this, so even okay to not know that, I would just call your bank or whoever lent you the money to buy your home and ask them, I need 3 months pause because I'm not getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
You actually have the right to that. But I would say that's even true for any viewer. Don't be afraid to ask. Same with a car lease, even a car loan. And even, I would say, although it's not covered by the act that you just described, you can even do it with credit cards. I'd say, again, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Call them and ask for a pause in the payments due to the shutdown, and also mention your military status if you're a teacher or a first responder.
Yeah, all that stuff can go a long way, right? All right, we got 30 seconds left here for the everyday viewer. What's your biggest piece of advice beyond the discounts?
Discounts are one thing I would say too. You want to tell people, I don't know, don't, stay in the economy. Don't just go home and be scared and worried. Just keep trying to get out there. Keep asking, keep talking to people. Ask for I like discounts because it's something that can be extended to you. I will say this: if you are a veteran, fill out your DD form 214 at the VA and get that turned in so you can get your veteran ID card, which will help you with any of these things.
Gotcha. Lisa Gill, Consumer Reports, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, take care. Life expectancy for people living with Down syndrome has climbed dramatically. We're going to discuss what's behind these numbers coming up. Plus, we're going to get a check with our Gridlock Guy. Stay right there. We'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Drivers in Druid Hills were left spinning, literally, over confusing signs at 2 North Decatur Road roundabouts. The signs told drivers at the circle to yield to those entering, and the exact opposite of the law of Georgia. Well, but thanks to a sharp-eyed viewer and a quick response by the county, those things got cleared up. Here to tell us more about it is our Gridlock Guy, Doug Turnbull. Doug, tell us all about this problem. What went wrong here?
Yeah, big props to Don Jennings, by the way, who sent me an email. He watches us here, also reads the Gridlock Guy column in Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and he said, hey, can you help me out? Because there are signs up on North Decatur Road at 2 different roundabouts, at Oakdale and at Springdale, or there were signs anyway, that told drivers inside of the roundabout that they had to yield to other drivers here. This is a look here at an entrance ramp or an exit ramp that we took here a little while back that shows a different deal, which definitely shows how things can be confusing. So look, state law says that drivers inside of a roundabout have the right of way. All right, so that means that the drivers entering the roundabout have to wait to enter. Now, it's all supposed to be smooth, but ultimately one side has to prevail over the other. These signs had something that was opposite of state law and opposite of what common roundabouts are supposed to be. Now, roundabouts, as you know, Chesley, confuse some people, or they don't love them, and so that's what we saw. I reached out to DeKalb County and tried to get some answers on that.
You've covered many stories like this, I'm sure, over the years, Doug, and how often do you get these people talking to you about signs being mixed up on the roads?
Yeah, we definitely get things all the time. In fact, what we did is we did this story on 11Alive. We actually put in, and I would say this to all of our viewers here on The Take, you know, if you see something wrong, send me an email, dturnbull@11alive.com. And I actually got several emails back about other things on North Decatur Road, about other signs and other roundabouts and places that needed roundabouts. So it's very common. And what I said in my column about this on the traffic page at 11alive.com is you people are the #1 experts on your commute. That doesn't mean you're always right, but you see things that I'm not going to see from miles away that you're not going to see either, Chesley, just like people know it's raining in their backyard before you know it on the maps, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So roundabouts are relatively new to our area, right? And so as people are trying to get accustomed to them, talk to us about how we're supposed to navigate those.
For sure. Hey, rule #1, don't drive the wrong way, right? Rule #1 is don't drive clockwise. You know, you turn to the right. We drive on the right side of the road, so a roundabout runs counterclockwise, all right? But basically the deal is you don't always have to come to a full stop. If you're a driver entering a roundabout, you put on your turn signal, even though you can only turn right, and then you get ready to merge in with the other cars, and when you're ready to get out of the roundabout, you keep that signal on when you're ready to take that next exit. Most roundabouts have only four total ways to get in and out, but some of them have multiple lanes, so just using the same caution you would otherwise. And if you are going to make not the very next exit, but like say the second exit after that out, you would get on the inside line of the roundabout and then merge over after that.
Do these mini ones create more of a challenge for us than the larger ones?
For sure, and that was an issue on North Decatur Road, is even this viewer who loves roundabouts questioned, was a roundabout the right way to go versus a four-way stop on North Decatur Road, because they couldn't carve a big circle out because of people's property there. And so I think it does, because it looks like a four-way stop without stop signs, but it is a roundabout with a little island in the middle, so you just need to approach it gingerly. But the idea is that people don't come to full stop starts. That creates less hassle and less crashes, especially at bigger intersections.
Got it. All right, Doug Turnbull, thanks so much for joining us, man. And if folks have or come across a sign that's confusing, they should contact you, right? Well, first contact GDOT and then contact you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely contact your local jurisdiction there and send me an email, dturnbull@11alive.com. I'd be happy to look into it.
Thanks a lot. All right. Gridlock Guy, really appreciate that. All right. As more people with Down syndrome live longer, there's now new national effort in stepping in to help doctors keep up with the changing aspect of taking care of people like that. Here to talk more about the care with adults with Down syndrome and grant behind what's the grant behind this new project is Candy Packard. She's the CEO of the National Down Syndrome Society. Candy, welcome to the show. Candy, can you hear me? All right, we're gonna get rid of some of the technical issues with Candy's shot, and then we'll come back and talk more about it. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're back right after this. All right, before we went to break, we were talking to Candy Packard. She's the CEO of the National Down Syndrome Society, and you're talking about a new grant that's going to help out, or we're hearing about folks living with Down syndrome living longer, and this grant is supposed to help out. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. So we're really excited. We're launching our Care Down Syndrome Initiative, which is a clinical education and resource hub for healthcare professionals.
So what do you think the general public still misunderstands about adulthoods or adults living with Down syndrome?
Absolutely. As you mentioned, the livelihood of an individual with Down syndrome is now people are living into their 60s and their 70s, where, you know, in the mid 80s, they were living into their 20s and 30s. And so we're trying to bridge that gap in healthcare needs for our adults with Down syndrome. And that's where CARE is a solution to be able to do that with healthcare professionals.
Yeah, you spent years advocating for this community. What stories from the adults with Down syndrome struck you the most?
Absolutely. I think what we're seeing is that there's a lack of understanding of the needs and the unique healthcare needs of individuals with Down syndrome and adults with Down syndrome. About 5% of individuals with Down syndrome have access to specialty care clinics that truly understand the unique needs of individuals with Down syndrome and their healthcare, uniqueness that comes into that. And so this tool is a way for healthcare professionals to be able to educate themselves on the needs of the people that they're serving in their local communities.
What about families as well? When you make that transition from a child living with Down syndrome to an adult, what are the gaps there, or are there any?
There are. I think we see a lot of times that healthcare professionals, I look at my son, he's 13 years old, who has Down syndrome. At some point in time here, we're going to have to transition to an adult provider versus a pediatric care provider. And I think what we see is a lot of times our adult physicians or primary care providers may not understand those unique needs, as I mentioned, about our adults. And so this educational tool is a way to be able to give healthcare professionals more education on what they need to look for within adults with Down syndrome.
And what would that be, especially when it comes to adults living with Down syndrome? What are those things that you need to recognize early?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we're looking at is we're seeing a lot of things around regression disorder, even as our aging population looks into Alzheimer's disease is a piece that we're learning a lot now more about around the correlation of Down syndrome and Alzheimer's disease. And so those are just two, very unique types of pieces that we just need to educate our families, as you mentioned, but also those providers.
Yeah, we hear this is this is the last question for you. The $1.7 million grant, what will it allow your organization to do that you haven't been able to do before?
Yeah, it's for us, it's really bridging this gap in healthcare. I think we did this survey, last year, and this is what our families are needing, and our families are really wanting to advocate for better care for their loved ones.
All right. Thanks so much, Candy Packard. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
All right. Atlanta-based Coca-Cola has officially begun adding a little old school sweetener to its lineup. CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Good morning to you, Maribel.
Hey, good morning, Chesley.
All right. That classic flavor is coming back, I understand, right?
Let's talk about Coca-Cola now selling a version of its classic soda made with cane sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup. So the rollout follows President Trump's call earlier this year for the company to make the switch. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. has aggressively advocated against high fructose corn syrup for years. Cane sugar is already used in some international Cokes and other U.S. drinks like Simply Lemonade and Gold Peak Tea. Coke says its new version is hitting select cities and retailers across the U.S. The beverage maker also reports growing success with its sugar-free options like Coke Zero, which grew 14% globally last quarter. I will say this, Chesley, there's some about Mexican Coke and Mexican Sprite. It just hits different.
It does hit a little different, doesn't it? Yeah. All right, so Walmart, speaking of hitting, is hitting the pause button on hiring pipeline, which powers its tech workforce. Talk to us about that.
It sure is. So Walmart is freezing job offers to applicants who need H-1B visas to work in the U.S. The decision follows President Trump's move to raise the H-1B visa fee to $100,000 for new applicants. The pause affects roles that typically rely on visa sponsorship, including hard-to-staff technology roles. Now, Walmart currently employs about 2,000 H-1B visa holders nationwide. The Trump administration says the higher fee is intended to curb abuse of the program that presents a costly barrier to firms who struggle to fill technology roles in the U.S. With talent. Chesley.
All right. We got another price bump for one of our streaming services here. We talked about maybe one going down yesterday, but now one's going up.
Warner Brothers Discovery is raising prices across all of its HBO Max plans. The basic plan with ads goes up $1 to $10.99. Standard is now $18.49, and premium jumps to $22.99. The change takes effect immediately for new subscribers, with current users getting 30 days notice. And the move comes as Warner Brothers Discovery makes broader changes impacting the company's future. It's rejected 3 bids from Paramount Skydance as of this morning, with the last one at just under $24 a share, according to sources familiar with the talks who spoke to CNBC. Now, Chesley, those same sources say other interested parties include Netflix and Comcast.
All right, smell another merger coming. Smell another one coming. Yeah. All right, finally, we got some big names saying it's time to slow down the race when it comes to super intelligent machines.
Chesley, I mean, we don't want a Resident Evil. More than 850 tech leaders and public figures are calling for a ban on so-called super intelligent AI systems that could surpass human abilities. The group released a statement warning that unchecked AI progress could threaten jobs, freedoms, national security, and even humanity's survival. Among those supporting the call are Virgin Group founder Sir Richard Branson, and Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. They want to pause on superintelligence research until there's proof it can be safely controlled. A recent survey from the Future of Life Institute found that only 5% of U.S. adults support unregulated superintelligence development. Firms like OpenAI, XAI, and Meta have been racing to build even more powerful AI models. And Chesley, It's the wild, wild west right now. And we haven't experienced this since the birth of the internet. Look, the two of us, we've lived through the white pages. We had to memorize phone numbers. And now we just say, hey, Siri, call this person for us. As long as she can understand you, she's got to understand you.
Yeah.
All the way around.
Yeah, I'm afraid. Have you seen that movie, I, Robot?
Yes, I have.
That's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm afraid of.
You stay over there.
That's right. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
You got it.
Oh, man. Where are we going, folks? Where are we going? An Atlanta landmark turns 20 years old. Find out which one we're talking about and what will the next 20 years look like for it. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the show. Just 2 decades ago, Atlanta turned a former steel mill into one of the most walkable, livable, and shoppable destinations. Atlantic Station marking 20 years this week, showcasing how far the mixed-use the neighborhood has come. And now, what's next? A few fun facts about A Station. The entire 138 acres once housed the Atlanta Steel Mill, one of Atlanta's largest employers for nearly a century. It has its own zip code, 30363, it was created in 2005 just for that new community. The Atlantic Station became one of the nation's first major brownfield redevelopments. That's a site that has been developed for industry, then repurposed. Let's take a look back and ahead with the Atlantic Station marketing and event manager, Katie Boland. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm holding on. If you could just sum up right. If you could just sum up the story of Atlantic Station in just a word or two or a phrase, what would it be?
I mean, if I were to do a word or two, I would say transformation. That is one word I would use for us, but I think it's interesting to look back and you had some good talking points on what we used to be. But we really did. We started with a steel mill, and it was huge. It started in 1901 and shut down in 1998. So that's a long period of time that we were producing a lot of steel. We were producing 750,000 tons of steel. And now, we're welcoming 11 million visitors to Atlantic Station to live here. So it's crazy to look at something that used to be having thousands of workers here and producing 6 different types of steel products. But now we've got all sorts of different things you can do: services, entertainment, shopping, retail, residential options too. So with Emily, we just opened that. You could be the first one to live in a unit there. So we really started as an economic thriving industry of producing all the steel for the Southeast, and now here we are building this new thing, this whole neighborhood that we've got over 10,000 people living and working at.
Yeah. When you look back, what do you think was the turning point for Atlantic Station, for how Atlantans live in downtown now?
Yeah, I mean, really, the whole development of Atlantic Station was a huge turning point. But something to think about too is that the 17th Street Bridge was created because of Atlantic Station. So connecting Atlantic Station to downtown there, that wouldn't have been done without Atlantic Station's build. So I think welcoming that in and becoming the heart of Atlanta was huge for us. Now, another huge turning point was when Hines took over as asset and property managers about 10 years ago. We really started to tweak the way that we were doing leasing and marketing for Atlantic Station, and now we're continuing to thrive with adding more entertainment, adding more services than ever. On top of the things that we already had, we have things that people may forget about. We've got a lot of different entertainment with even just a children's playground. We have Bolero, which is, Likey Strike now. It used to be Bolero. It's a bowling alley, arcade, and entertainment there, but we also have Museum of Illusions, our Millennium Gate Museum, Candle Corner, Fragrance House. We have a lot of entertainment things to do on top of our shopping and our restaurants.
Yeah. What are some of the ways Atlantic Station is marking the big 20-year milestone? Talk to us about the celebration.
Yeah. Yesterday was officially our 20th anniversary. So it was our 20th birthday yesterday. Next year we're holding the year of our 21st anniversary on the 21st. But on Saturday, we're getting everybody together and celebrating. It's open to the public. It's free. It'll be a fun night under the stars with some 20th, roaring 20s type experiences. So we'll have a band, we'll have photo ops, we'll have a history wall, so you can really look back into what we used to be and where we're going now. But we are encouraging everybody to wear their roaring 20s attire. So if you've got your great Gatsby outfits, we're welcoming that in. We'll have some special cocktails for you. And really just celebrating Atlantic Station and where we've been and where we're going. And there's a lot to come too. A few new restaurants coming in with Busy Bee. We have some fun ones that we're about to announce in a week or so. But we've got a lot of things coming to Atlantic Station that we're celebrating ahead. But this time on Saturday, it'll be the 25th from 6 to 9 p.m. Just experiencing and celebrating Atlantic Station where it is now.
Sounds good. Katie Boland, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Folks, when we return, another look at your forecast, plus my final take. It's right after the break. Well, we're looking at a cooler day than we had just yesterday, where temperatures got up to around 80 degrees. Today will be a good 10 degrees cooler, thanks to a cold front that has pushed through our area. We got dry air back behind it, which is good news. And areas that started out with the fog certainly is burning off, and so we'll all have that sunshine for today. In fact, throughout the state, that's the way it's going to be. Now, the winds will add to that coolness. Today, we're looking at winds anywhere between 10 to 15 miles per hour. The gusts will be in the 20 mile per hour range. You're looking at 75 degrees for the high temperature on Thursday and Friday. Both days feature that sunshine, so we're looking good. And keep in mind, we should be around 73 degrees this time of year. We'll hit that on Saturday. A few more clouds working in, and notice what happens as we head into the weekend, further into the weekend. Sunday, 30% chance for a shower or two. Model's going back and forth on that, so we'll continue to fine tune it for you, but looks like late Sunday going into Monday is where we could have some showers, and those temperatures going down again as we head into next week. Looking at 60s for highs, 67 degrees on Monday. By Tuesday, we're looking at 68 for the high with only a 20% chance for showers. I think another chance will come to us by Wednesday of next week, and that's important because we are in drought conditions around the state, folks, so we need that rain. Let's get it. We need that rain. All right, before we go to break, my final take here. And here's another great example of how a mother's intuition, right, is still very valuable today. Take a look at this. You're looking at a mother who normally receives her child off the school bus, you know, just like a normal day, when she notices smoke coming from the engine, the front of the thing. And so what does she do? She gets on the bus. She tells all those kids, hey, get off that bus right now, and tells the driver, hey, man, your bus is smoking. There's some flames. And within minutes, once she got all 22 kids off that bus, within minutes, there you go. The fire overtook the whole complete front of the bus. Look at that bus right there. Man, I'm glad she did what she did, right? All 22 kids made it off the bus. The only thing that was left was maybe a book bag or two, a lunchbox. That's the only thing that was lost in this fire. All those can be replaced, right? Parents, grateful. School, grateful. All because of a mother's instinct. Still very valuable today. I got to tell you, as a dad, you know what probably would have happened with dads? Hey, man, would have yelled out to the bus driver, hey, man, your bus is smoking. You might want to check that out. Grabbed your kid and went walking in. But the mom says, no, there's other kids on that bus. I'm going to get on that bus and I'm taking those kids off there, right? Dads, we got to do better. Thank you, mothers. Really appreciate you saving lives even today. Make it a great day, folks. Try to encourage someone. We'll see you back here tomorrow.